I have the honor to speak to you, but I'm sure each one of you could get up here, take the mic, and tell a story just as compelling as mine tonight. Yeah, this isn't a career I picked. My whole life, I was in wealth management, was in investments, and I'm going to start a little bit about why I ended up in the recovery community. And I do want to just ask permission. Is it okay for me to be authentic and genuine tonight? I may get a little dark. I don't intend to trigger people, but I'm also 60 years old and I'm tired of walking around on eggshells. One of the ways we're going to get out of this whole problem that we all dug ourselves into is through discourse, connection, love, empathy, and inspiration. So thank you for allowing me to do that. I also had a book. I'm not here to sell it, but I'm going to give some of the it's $20 and I'll give $5 to WellBrook tonight for anyone who buys it. I only brought 20 books. They're sitting in my garage gathering dust, so I thought I'd bring them today. It's kind of odd. You said you were, where's the Bears fan, right? Well, I'm a Hawkeye in Badgerland, so yeah, that's a little scary too. I did speak at Carroll College in 2022, so was anyone there when I spoke there? If not, I'll tell you how I ended up there, which is kind of cool. I'm going to start with a quote that has really become my marching orders. And if you have a pen, I'd really encourage you to write this quote down. It's on the back of all the t-shirts I had at one point when I was doing our tour around the country. I'll show that in a minute. It's purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. You got to kind of think about that for a minute. Purpose becomes passion when it gets personal. And I'll save that till the end because I have a dialogue I'll share with you how you can find your purpose in your life by using that sentence. But I'd like to start off with a very discouraging statistic, and it's this. 900 people a day in the United States die from the deaths of despair. And we all know what the deaths of despair are, right? What are they? Suicide, overdose. And there's 3 of them. Suicide, overdose, and alcohol. 900 a day. Suicide, overdose, and alcohol just in the United States. And you don't have to have death in a family to have devastation and destruction. Matter of fact, there's more families that don't have death, but they have the divorces, the bankruptcies, the affairs, the drug writings, all that stuff, right? So even though my story is going to start off pretty dark, there was lots of issues in the family prior to what happened ultimately. And I'm going to actually go back to October 6, 2016. That's where I'm going to start tonight with you. Because that's really where I died and was reborn. On that particular day, I was 50 years old. I was happily married to the love of my life, Prudence, for 21 years. We had 3 boys, Seth, Ian, and Roman. Seth was 23, Ian was 17, and Roman was 15. When you have kids, you sometimes have a hard time with ages, let alone names. And it was 6:30 in the morning, and I was taking my son for a golf tournament for districts. He was a sophomore on the golf team. I was a wealth manager, so ever since graduated from college, I wanted to be in the investment world. That's what I wanted to do. And so by the time I was 50, I had built up a firm. We had a number of full-time employees. I had advisors all over the Midwest. I had a TV show for 6 years. I was doing radio for 17 years. Big house, fast car, all the trappings, all the illusions of success, right? And with all that comes all the foundational cracks that most people don't see. On that particular morning, my phone rang, 6:30 in the morning. And I share all this in the book. And I looked at the number and I knew that this person, this call, this early in the morning, something on the phone was going to be bad. I didn't imagine what was going to be. And when I picked up the phone, and I can imagine my son standing right here, I got his golf bag out of the trunk. I'm getting ready to go pick up my wife and go up to the golf course to watch him play for districts. And I pick up the phone and all I hear is, Seth is dead. That's all I heard. So I'm staring at my 15-year-old son. I've got this split-second decision to make. Do I tell him? Do I tell him that his brother's dead? Well, he's the number 1 golfer on the team. We've never made state. This is all the team has been practicing for. Seth wasn't coming back if I didn't tell him. I wasn't going to impact the team and the families and everybody that worked hard because of what happened to our son or wasn't coming back. So I made a split-second decision. But what I also did tell him was I love him. I turned around and got my car and I thought, how the hell am I going to tell my wife our son is dead? It's the worst moment of my entire lifetime. I remember coming around, pulling in the garage. I can only imagine what Ian thought heading up to the golf course, getting ready to play golf that day. And where's Dad? I mean, I was his coach since he was 4. Believe it or not, we played golf when he was 4. And I wasn't there. Neither was Mom. Well, I was at home coming around the kitchen. My wife's in the bedroom getting ready, on the phone with another mom talking about walking on the golf course. It's a nice day. And you all got kids, you play youth sports, the excitement. I just come around the corner and I say the same thing I heard on the phone. I'm trembling. Seth is dead. Their eyes rolled back. And from that moment, she was never the same. We both hit the ground. I don't remember anything. It felt like 500 years. It felt like 5 minutes. We picked ourselves up and we went up to the hotel where he was found. It was all, the yellow tape was around it and they'd already hauled his body out. And Seth had run into fentanyl. Now, this was 2016. I didn't know what the hell fentanyl was. I didn't have any idea. I knew what heroin was, but never knew what fentanyl was. And so we got up there and we talked to everybody. And then I thought, wow, I got to tell my boys when they get home that their brother's dead. It's hard enough to tell my wife. What about the boys? So when I wrote my book, I came across a statistic that said sibling bereavement is the hardest thing for an adolescent to deal with. More than a mom and dad, more than a dog, more than a cousin or a grandparent. It's losing a brother or sister, specifically the older one. So I got a 15 and a 13-year-old that I got to now tell myself, how am I going to do this? And so I called my dad. My dad's a doctor and he's like the rock of my life, very pragmatic guy. Just, he's a doctor. He's delivered babies and he's held a hand with people that have crossed over. And he said, Jeff, I go, Dad, what do I do? What do I tell the boys? He said, here's what you do. You tell them the effing truth and then you shut your effing mouth because you like to fix everything. You want to talk your way out of this. Just tell them the truth and shut up. So the boys came home. My wife's right here and they could cut the tension in the air. They knew something bad happened. My wife's there, 2 boys sit on the couch and I just go, boys, I got some really bad news. Seth is dead. I mean, it's hard right now for me not to talk. But I didn't say a word. And my middle son leaned over and goes, how'd he die, Dad? Drugs? 15. And I said, yeah, drugs. And then something happened. And I can't explain it. Someone up in the panel talked about being hit by lightning. Something inside of me just said, this is it, man. This is your dad moment. It's go time. You have to say something impactful. The next word out of your mouth or frame and dictate the quality of your family the rest of your life. I call these dad moments, son moments, husband moments. You get like 3 or 5 in your whole lifetime. But we get them through the gift of chaos, the gift of tragedy, the gift of death. We get them through those gifts, not through the easy things. Every time you win, it's easy to say the right thing. But when something bad happens, that's when real courage. That's when you are revealed in those moments. So I knew I had to say something. So I don't even know where this came from, but I just pictured a fork in the road. I just pictured a choice. So I stood up and I cleared my voice. And I said, boys, we have 1 of 2 roads to go down. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred. We'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of love, hope, empathy, and inspiration. And this could be the single greatest moment in our lives to make a difference in the lives of others. I'm on the second road to ask you to join me. Now, where the hell that came from, I had no idea. I didn't want to rehearse. I wanted just to say whatever I could say to my boys. And man, they did. My 2 boys were absolutely amazing. There's 5 or 6 chapters in my book about how golf became, my son raised $30,000 the next year while in high school, won national award, became the number ranked golfer in the state of Iowa. And golf became a really valuable part of my life because I could go walk on the course for 4 or 5 hours. And what I used to stress about missed putts and, balls hit out of bounds, I got to think about Seth. I got to be present in my life again because I was trying to make money and impress people with wealth that I became a very miserable, shallow human being. But unfortunately, my big heroic speech didn't help me any. I told everyone at my firm that I needed to stay home for about a year to work on my mental health. We did call it mental health back then. It's just I needed to work on my family. My ship's sinking. You know, my wife is really struggling. Prudence was 9 years younger than me, and we stayed home for a year and a half, and we got drunker every single day. So what I hadn't told you, what I was a 36-year high functioning alcoholic. I built a multi-million dollar firm up, lived in a big house, had a fast car, but I drank 6-7 days a week. Never before 5, but I could drink. And after I got tired of beer, it was all wine. And we even had a cat named Opus and a dog named Camus. As if that's cool, name your pets after your 2 favorite vineyards. And finally, December 24th of 17, we're at a condo in Florida that I've since sold. I'm downsized my whole life now. And it's Christmas Eve of a year and a half after Seth died. The boys are in bed. My wife walks by me, and she's frail, and she's holding a glass of wine, and she's stumbling to bed. And I got hit by another lightning bolt that night. I went to the bathroom. I had my glass of Sangiovese because that was my favorite wine. And I put it down. I looked in the mirror. And I just had that moment. I said, "You pathetic coward of a man. You don't deserve to have kids. You don't deserve to have a beautiful life. You don't deserve to be alive. What are you going to do about it?" And I poured that glass of wine down the sink. And as that wine went down the drain, every single desire to ever drink went with it. And it's been 9 years. I haven't had one thought of alcohol. 9 years. You can't forget. I'm sure it has to do a lot with thinking about Seth, because he was an alcoholic too. Seth's addiction started with Adderall when he was 16. We'd go to the parent-teacher conferences, and all the teachers would tell us, "Hey, your son's not paying attention. Hey, he's doing this. Hey, he's doing that." And I'm like, I think I was that way at 15. I wasn't thinking about algebra when I was sitting in class at 15, right? Maybe you guys were, but I wasn't. Why is that abnormal? Why is that a disorder today? So I took him to the doctor because he had to be looked at. For what? Being a 15-year-old red-blooded American male? That's a problem now? You can't do that? And so we walked out with this really amazing, convenient label: attention deficit disorder, on my son's forehead. And here's a bottle of Adderall. We named it. Now we're going to tangle. Vaping, alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, drug driving, breaking and entering, prison, and then fentanyl. In that order. I'm not blaming Adderall. I'm just as culpable as anybody in this whole thing. I could have been a better dad. I could have quit drinking. He was struggling, but I didn't. And I thought me quitting drinking would help my wife, but it didn't. And on June 29th, 2021, my wife drank herself to death. She was 46 years old, married 21 years. The grief of bearing a child was too much. We found 13 prescription bottles she was taking. So boy, they named everything wrong with her, and they tamed it any way they could. And my dad's a doctor. I'm not throwing the profession under the bus. I kind of warned you that I don't have a filter, and I'm going to tell you my story today. You're welcome to come up and share yours. And we all have different opinions based on our the experiences that we had growing up. That's how we form most of our cognition, our opinions on how we were raised. That's religious. It could be anything. And so, I put 2 people in the system. My wife was in rehab and all that stuff, and they both died. So I'm like, at some point, I'm like, okay, something's got to change. My mom died 3 months later, the day after we put my first cat down. Now, so in 4.5 years, I lost my son, my wife, my mom, and my cat, Opus. I was done. And Christmas again, 2021 now, there's 7 boxes sitting in my living room. And after my wife died, she died in June, I've been walking by these boxes for 7 months, and my 2 boys are out. They're not around for the weekend. It's a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. I pull up a chair, and I'm overconfident that I'm doing good, right? I'm not drinking. I'm not taking any prescriptions. I feel really good. And I open up the first box, and it's all Seth. It's all pictures. Coaching, fishing, family vacations, basketball, his lyrics, just everything that he had in his whole life.
And I went from here to here. Then opened up the second box. I was my wife. And you may think, what are you doing? But again, I was overconfident that I'd won the grief game. I'd won the trauma game. You know, there's this mountain you're going to achieve, and you won. Congratulate. No, you never fucking win. You're always in a fight. I didn't realize that. I was overconfident that I was prepared to go down that road, and I wasn't. I made it to the second box. I took my phone. I broke it. I took my computer. I threw it off my deck. I said, it's go time. I walked in my closet, opened up my safe, got my gun out. And I said, I'm either walking out of here, the strongest fucking person that's ever walked the earth, or I'm coming out with Gurney. It's me against me. I want to figure this out right now. I'm sick and tired of this shit. I sat in that closet for 3 days with a gun in my head. I don't remember any of it. I didn't eat. If I'd have been drinking or on medications, I probably would have killed myself. And the fact I was clean of mind, I could sit in my shit and respect the gifts of suffering and pain and agony and torture. I was telling myself the wrong story. These are warning signals. These aren't problems we need to medicate. These are the reasons why I am who I am, because I don't take any meds. And I'm not telling you if you do to stop. I'm telling you my story. I needed to do this for Jeff. In 3 days, I walked out of that closet absolutely convinced that I can handle anything. And I know all of our time here is numbered. I'm not being arrogant. I don't think I'm, some person that's going to be able to survive death. It's all coming to all of us. But I'm going to do everything in my power to delay that day. But walking out of that closet after that battle myself, man, it's something. And for those of you who had suicidal ideation, obviously you won because you're here tonight. And congratulations. But it doesn't end. I never look at my journey as some summit to climb, and I'm going to get there and I'm going to say, yeah, I made it because I did that with money. And I didn't make anything. I was miserable. So I am telling myself every day, I need to stay in preparation. I need to prepare for the next call that we get. We all get a call. Every one of us will. And so you live long enough, it's simple math, right? I'm 60. People do start dying around you. I just didn't expect it to be my son, my wife, and then my mom. My dad's 95 and he's still around. So the order was what was odd in my life. But, so during this whole time, I wrote a book. I started a podcast called Living Undeterred, because one thing I wanted to do was immerse myself in advocacy. That was keeping me alive. My wife, on the other hand, and God bless her, she didn't want to do any of that. She didn't want to talk about anything. She didn't really like the book I was writing. Okay. And I respected that. But you could see that was causing a rift, because to me, I had to help people. That was helping me selfishly. Someone came up to me and said, hey, thanks for sharing your story. I felt really good. I didn't need a drug or alcohol to do that. I did it through helping others. And I got addicted to it. In as much as that, I decided on a whim I was going to buy an RV and drive around the United States and raise $1 million and give it all the recovery community and nonprofits. So over lunch hour, I drove up to Camping World in Waterloo, Iowa, took about 10 of my books and said, I want to talk to the sales manager. And I'd never been in an RV before. Don't ask me where this idea came into my head because of the attention deficit. I just chased the van. I don't know what I'm going to do when I catch it. I swear to you, I have no idea where this idea came from. And sometimes I wish my ideas would stop because I don't have a no button. And so I went to Camping World and I walk out of there with a 34-foot Hurricane Thor, brand new, fully loaded RV, and having no idea where to put the gas in or anything. I went to Nesper Science in Cedar Rapids and I got a wrap, the Living Undeterred U.S. Tour Mental Health Initiative. And I went to LinkedIn and told everyone I'm going to do this. But I bought the RV because I knew if I didn't do it, I wouldn't do it. That's the gift of ADHD, but it's the curse as well. Because now I'm like, how am I going to do this? So May 9, 2022, I left my driveway. We went 22,000 miles, 95 days around the United States.
Oh.
And we met with 35 different recovery communities, nonprofits. I met Alice Cooper and his wife. I got to speak at his Teen Rock Center in Phoenix, Arizona for years in a row. Met Ryan Hampton, who's one of my dear friends. He runs Mobilize Recovery, one of the largest advocates in the United States. He's responsible for being on the Senate committee that brought down Ryan Hampton.
Jess is here too as well, my good friend Jess. But the reality is the tour just really validated what I already knew, that there's some good fucking people out there. Really good people out there. And getting my ass out of my house and hugging and crying and being at gas stations and having strangers come up, seeing the RV, and they go to the internet, Google me. I'm going down the highway and mom's texting me saying, hey, my daughter's struggling. You know, do you got time to talk? And I said, yeah, I do. I brought a documentary guy with me. He quit after 7 days. He said, Jeff, you want to talk to every single person that reaches out to you? And I said, yeah, I do. I'll buy it. I flew him back from Boise, Idaho. Because, God, why wouldn't you? I didn't buy the RV to go camping. Yeah, he left. He quit after a week. So my next project someday will be the documentary. I got some unbelievable interviews. I've got two what are called hard drives full of interviews all over the country. But I raised $45,000. That was it. I want to do $1 million. I spent over $225,000 on my own. And we're the last day of the tour, and we're at a campground in Little Rock, Arkansas. There's a really funny story about that. But with ADHD, if I start that story, I'll forget why I started it. So someone remind me. I'm already forgetting. Okay, Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. So anyway, so there's Rotary International has an organization called the Rotary International Addiction Prevention. It's called RAGAP. And I was like, they found me somewhere on my tour and asked me to be a board member. I was really honored to do that for addiction prevention. And so the head guy, Larry Kenmore, was driving up from somewhere in Arkansas to Little Rock to hear me speak at a recovery center, just like this, a community like this. And on the way to the event, so we left a little bit early, and not having a lot of RV experience, I left the awning out. But we hit a tree and it tore the awning out. And I'm 2 hours from my event. There's like 100 people showing up. I got the Rotary guy coming in to like vet me to make sure I could be a board member. And I'm like, shit, what do I do? So of course I tell my son to jump up there with, duct tape and everything, trying to tie the awning together. Happened to be a really windy day in Little Rock, and we're going down the highway, and it's just like Christmas vacation, and I'm driving the RV, my son's there, and our generator broke, and it's 89 degrees, so we have no air conditioning in the RV. And I'm driving in trying to get there, and the wind hit, and the things broke in the RV, the awning flopped all the way open. So I'm flying across 3 lanes of the interstate. Thank God no one was there. Pulled over, and long story short, some people, just the universe helped me out. Some guys jumped up there and cut it out. I don't know what they did with the awning. I just gave money and said, you guys do what you want with it. And made it there 20 minutes for my talk, and ended up doing a deal with the Rotary, and I'm a board member. But going back to Little Rock, that was my story with Little Rock that I remember very well. But I remember sitting around a campfire, and my son's like, well, what's next, Jeff? What are you going to do next, And I said, well, that's a good question. Let me see. I failed as a dad. I failed as a husband. I failed as an advocate. What can I fail at next? And he said, Dad, my son at the time must have been about 19 or 20. There's one thing about you, Dad. When you fail forwards. So that's like a quote that stuck with me. There's no such thing as failure, even in your recovery journey. You just get up, and when you do fail, you fail forward. You just keep falling down. You're making progress that way. If you fall backwards, you don't. So again, in the recovery community, everybody's got a pathway. Mine just happened to be, I could just quit. I'm very lucky in that regards. Other people, it's different. I never went to AA. I go to meetings all the time with my friends. I didn't feel like I needed it. My wife didn't go for some other personal reasons. Maybe some of you know what I'm hinting at, but she is an agnostic atheist. So for her, any higher power was a turnoff to her. I wish she would have went. I think it would have really helped her. The community would have helped her, and not get too caught up on all the numbers up there. Just get into the people, because that's why you're really there. You're not there for that stuff. You're here for this. And so from that idea is where my new thing that I do now. So I launched an app. It's a mental health app called Brighten, and we are in the healthcare system. So we work with recovery community centers, we work with hospitals, schools, and
And we're very upstream based. What I noticed in the industry was that everything was downstream. Everything was pulling people out of the river. And if you know who Desmond Tutu is, you probably remember this quote. At some point, we need to stop pulling people out of the river, which is treatment. And when you figure out why they're falling in the river in the first place, and that's upstream prevention. So our app is based on upstream prevention. And we've got the clinical layers that if somebody's struggling and we can off-ramp them there, off-ramp them, get help. The name Bright means a lot to me. 3 weeks after Seth died, his daughter was born. And she's 10 now. And we didn't know about her for a year and a half. So I'm sitting around and you get a call from Johnston, one of Seth's old friends, and I'm with my wife, and I go, I wonder why Justin's calling. And I pick up the phone, he goes, hey, Jeff, are you sitting down? And I do. Don't say that to me, because a lot of people have been dying in my life when calls start off like that. He goes, no, I got some really good news for you. You have a granddaughter. I'm like, no way. And so as the universe took, my wife and my son and gave me something in return for my pain and suffering. And her name's Bright. So I thought about what I wanted to name this company, this mental health app. We named it Bright. I want to talk a little bit about what I do to stay on force. Obviously, being busy is not a problem with me. I like being active. I like speaking. I like driving. I like flying. Any conference I could go to. But meditation helped me a lot early on. I'm agnostic, so I'm not a believer, but I'm very spiritual. So I consider myself as spiritual as religious people are religious. I'm just like at a point in my life where I don't really need to know why. And I'm comfortable not knowing. A lot of people aren't that way. I am. So as an agnostic, it was hard for me to understand all this. I couldn't blame God. I couldn't say God's going to help me because I didn't believe. So it's like, it's really up to me. It's like that moment in the mirror when I looked in the mirror when I quit drinking and I gave you that talk. There's only one person in your life that will never lie to you. You can't lie to, and that's the person looking back in the mirror. Once you look in the mirror, try lying to your reflection. You can't. And so there is some moments where you can release yourself. And through meditation, I really learned to separate myself and not identify with my thoughts as much. So I used to ruminate, play negative scenarios and blame myself and have all that guilt for Seth's death and Prudence's death. And through meditation, at one point I was doing an hour a day, first thing in the morning, from like 4:30 to 5:30 in the dark, just cat in my lap, just breathing. And with ADHD, it's hard. It's really hard. Because you're like, you're supposed to levitate? What's going on? Come on, hurry up. This isn't working. And the thing is, there's nothing to work. That's the whole beauty of meditation. There's nothing to work. And so now it's like I'm at the store and I can go into quick, 5-second, 20-second meditation. I'm in traffic, someone cuts me off. It's call. I haven't been mad in years, Matter of fact, early in my career, I anointed myself angry fentanyl dad because I was asked to go to high schools and yell at kids not to do drugs and show pictures of my son and stuff and fentanyl and scare, bad stuff. They already know that. They all know that. And I go in the car afterwards, and I was in Utah, I think it was, and I drove in this, I think it was Battle Creek or something. It was just way out there. And I remember this assembly of like 500 kids, and I'm up there, see what time it is. So I'm up there speaking, and I have them engaged and everything, and I get out in my car, and I just absolutely lost it. I'm just like, what are you doing, dude? You're just angry fentanyl dad. You're just angry. And that moment, again, another moment in my life where just all that hate and I said, I'm never going to give a talk like that again, ever in my entire lifetime. My talk's going to be love, hope, inspiration, empathy, not scarcity, fear, and pity. That's who I was for a long time in my life. And so angry fentanyl dad died in that parking lot. And so now when I talk to people, I want to be as authentic as I can, share the story that is my story, but understand that the goal is not to change your behavior tonight. The goal is that a piece of my story can resonate with you and you can take it with you into your journeys and your stories. And then hopefully we can right this singular ship that is this epidemic we have that's not just alcohol, drugs, but it's mental health as a whole. There's this stupid statistic that says 1 in 5 people struggle with their mental health. It's 5 in 5 will struggle at some point in their lifetime. Every single one of us in this room will have some bad phone call from your doctor, from your lawyer, your accountant, your neighbor. It's guaranteed when you were birthed into this world that, as beautiful as it is, there's going to be moments of difficulty. And so, purpose and the goal tonight is to share, but don't focus on the tragedy. To me, my story isn't tragic. It's unfortunate. Tragedy is a baby drowning in a pool. It's your wife getting breast cancer and a year after you get married and she dies. That's tragedy. My son and my wife's death were preventable and predictable at the same time. That's not a tragedy. So even though people feel sorry for me, I've changed my whole narrative. And when somebody now tells me a personal story about their family, they lost somebody they loved or cared about, I used to say, the traditional thinking of you, even though I'm agnostic, I would say thoughts and prayers because they made them feel good. I don't say that anymore. You know what I say? 4 words, the most important word we can say in this community, did make a difference in the lives of others. How can I help? No more thoughts and prayers, no more thinking of you. How can I help? I'll drive to Brookfield, Wisconsin and talk when these guys ask me to come talk. I didn't ask, will you pay me? I didn't ask, will you cover my expenses? How can I help? Okay. I was never this guy. I was a narcissist. I was arrogant. I was focused on what you all thought of me, focused on how big my house was, how fast my car. I sold all that. I ultimately want to live in a cave in Tibet. That's my dream. I'm a scuba diver too, so I want to be in the ocean every day. I'm serious. I don't want any more, but I have all that. It doesn't bring me the joy that advocacy does. Another thing that I hesitate mentioning in this community, and I'll just briefly skirt over it because one of the problems with stigma is that we're afraid to talk about things. Would you guys all agree? And I'm not promoting this, but it's helped me. I was asked to go through some psychedelic assisted therapy, changed my life. Now, I never even smoked pot. So I was just a drunk and I had a gambling addiction for 20 years. That's a whole nother seminar. But alcohol and gambling do not mix. They feed on each other. But I never did drugs. I knew with my addiction personality, and I grew up when Len Bias died. Anybody here remember Len Bias' story? Yeah. So I was in high school when that happened. I'm like, dude, I'll be Len Bias because I want to do all the cocaine. I wouldn't want to do just a line. I would do it all. Like when I gambled, I wanted to win all the money in the casino. There wasn't any double or triple my money. That's why I always walked out with 0, because you can never get all the money from the casino. So I was smart enough with one addiction. I knew I couldn't do drugs. So I was really hesitant with psychedelics, but I was coming off 3 days in the closet. I didn't want to go back. And when you're close to suicide, you'll do anything to never have to go through that again. So at the time, I was really open to it. And I had a friend that did it and regulated it. And now you're seeing things like ibogaine now that are going to be involved with PTSDs for veterans primarily. I'm not here promoting that. Again, I think I owe it to you to tell you my situation and my story, then you can take what you want out of it. And I'm not here to debate about it either, because all I know is what it did for Jeff. I know there's some people that had tough experiences and some people that can't do that. And that's fine. As long as the pathway you're on is working for you, I wouldn't change a thing. Okay. And that's the beauty of the recovery community. There is no right pathway. And I wish sometimes we could stop, spending so much ridiculous time on trying to tell everybody the right way to do it. Just because I was able to quit cold turkey doesn't mean I expect you to do it. Or if you relapse and had a drink, that's your journey. That's your experience. Would you guys all agree that that's probably the way we should be doing this in this community instead of judging each other? I'll give you an example about judgment. I shared it before I talked today. I got a few more minutes, but when I had my brush with suicide in 2021, males don't talk about this stuff. They just don't. It's supposedly a sign of weakness for a strong looking man to be thinking about killing himself.
And so I was at a reception and I felt in a safe space with my business partner and his wife. Thought it was a safe space. I said, Lori goes, how you doing? I said, I'm not doing real good. I'm having those dark thoughts again. I thinking about ending my life. And she just fucking ripped my head off. You selfish fucker. You got 2 other kids. You already lost half your family. And after she walked away from me, I turned to my best friend. I go, this is why men don't talk about their mental health. But one time I was raw and exposed myself. I get fucking thrown under the bus. But I'm undeterred. I'm not going to go hide in a corner and feel sorry for myself. I educated her. So when she came back, I said, Lori, this is why men end up doing that unthinkable thing, because they get judged like you just judged me. Can you understand that there was a better way for you to probably handle that? Maybe like my dad said, just don't talk. Just listen. Put an arm around me, say you love me, it's okay. Instead of telling me I'm selfish because I want to kill myself, that's not going to help anybody. So, these are the stigmas I'm trying to break when I tell these stories. So I'm up against the clock. So I thought I would just leave the last 5 or so minutes to just some questions. If anyone has observation or comments or questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. But any more questions before we wrap it up?
Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.